Before the headlines, before the luxury brand flashes and the global fandom, there was a boy in a school uniform, quiet enough to be overlooked, sharp enough to be remembered. Kim Soo-HYUN didn't look like a storm when he was young. He looked like the kind of student you'd pass in a hallway and never realize you'd just walked by someone who would one day dominate primetime Korea. But here's the paradox that frames his entire story. The more carefully he built his image, the more the world tried to tear it apart. Because in Korea, becoming a top actor isn't just about talent, it's about becoming a public property, a face people feel entitled to judge, protect, accuse, and punish. And Kim Soo-HYUN's rise is the kind that turns admiration into obsession, then obsession into scrutiny. Picture the early years like a film montage, school photos, awkward smiles, a boy still growing into his features, then a hard cut to the future. A red carpet, 1,000 cameras, a crowd screaming his name. And in the middle of that noise, the same question hangs in the air. How does someone go from invisible to unavoidable? Because when you climb that high, the fall doesn't need to be real to feel deadly. All it takes is a rumor that sticks, a narrative that spreads faster than truth, and a public that believes it owns the ending. This is not a Wikipedia biography. This is the story of a boy who walked into acting like it was a door to freedom, only to discover that fame is another kind of cage. The hook isn't, will he make it? He did. The hook is darker. When Kim Soo-HYUN finally became Korea's golden star, did the spotlight start searching for a reason to burn him? Kim Soo-HYUN's before fame doesn't begin with confidence. It begins with the opposite, a boy who was known for being shy and introverted, the kind of kid who could disappear in a classroom without meaning to. His parents separated when he was young, and he was raised by his mother, growing up with that specific kind of quiet pressure children feel when they don't want to add more weight to an already heavy home. Later, the public would discover that his biological father is Kim Chung-hoon, a singer from the 1980s band Seven Dolphins. But in Soo-HYUN's early life, the headline wasn't celebrity bloodline. The headline was simply, a kid trying to become brave. That's where the first turning point comes in. Not a talent scout, not a dramatic street casting scene, but a mother's decision. To help him overcome his shyness, his mother encouraged him to take acting classes while he was still in school. It wasn't about fame at first. It was about confidence. About teaching a quiet boy to speak, to stand tall, to exist in a room without shrinking. And the irony is cinematic. The very tool meant to help him stop hiding would eventually make him one of the most visible faces in Korea. Somewhere between middle school and high school, acting stopped being practice and started becoming identity. He did theater, real stage work that forces you to be present because there's no camera to save you, no editor to soften your mistakes. He performed in plays like A Midsummer Night's Dream as Puck, and later stage productions like Grease and even Hamlet, roles that demand timing, control, and emotional range long before you ever get a TV close-up. That's the kind of foundation viewers don't see when they only meet you after you're polished. The years when you learn how to hold silence, how to build tension, how to make an audience lean forward. But before fame also means choosing a path when nothing is guaranteed. Korea doesn't reward dreams just because they're sincere, it rewards results. Soo-HYUN had to decide whether acting was a hobby that made him feel alive, or a gamble worth staking his future on. He finished school in Seoul's Gangnam area, and instead of taking the safe route, he aimed directly for the craft, later enrolling in Chungang University's Film and Theater department. The message was clear. He wasn't trying to be famous, he was trying to be legitimate, to build a career strong enough to survive the industry's mood swings. Then came the first real door. Auditions. The kind that don't care how promising you are, only whether you deliver in that one moment. In 2007, he made his television debut in the family sitcom Kimchi Cheese Smile. It wasn't instant superstardom. It was the beginning of a timeline. One role on paper, one step in reality, proof that the shy kid could show up and do the work. And this is the note Part 2 ends on. Before the awards, before the record ratings, before the nation's star titles, there was a young actor taking his first professional breath, unaware that the same spotlight he was chasing would someday chase him back. His first TV credit didn't make people scream his name. It made casting directors remember his face. After Kimchi Cheese Smile, 2007, Kim Soo-HYUN started moving through the industry the way real careers are built, quietly, role by role, scene by scene. No instant miracle, just a young actor learning how to hold a frame without begging for it. The kind of early work where you don't shine yet, you simply prove you're reliable. And in a business that replaces people fast, reliability is a secret weapon. Then came the moment his youth finally started to look like an advantage. In 2008, he appeared in Jungle Fish, a drama that leaned into the raw, school-aged tension Korea knows too well: pressure, identity, the feeling of being trapped inside expectations. This wasn't the glossy kind of fame. This was the first time viewers could sense something real behind his eyes, something controlled but not empty. He wasn't acting like a pretty rookie. He was acting like someone who understood silence, someone who could make a small expression feel like a confession. That's when the first buzz begins, not on red carpets, but in comments, forums, and quiet conversations. Who is this kid? 2009 was the year he stopped being a new face and started being a name that keeps showing up. He took on roles in dramas like Will It Snow for Christmas and Father's House, stacking experience instead of chasing instant glory. These projects didn't turn him into a national star yet, but they did something more important. They widened his range. He could be soft without looking weak. He could be intense without looking forced. And every time he appeared, he looked a little more like someone the camera trusted. That's the difference between hype and momentum. Momentum doesn't scream. It accumulates. Behind the scenes, this was also when his image began forming before the public even realized it. The clean actor, the composed actor, the actor with an almost careful calm. The same calm that later helped him dominate big roles also planted a future problem. When you look controlled, people assume you're protected. When you look polished, people assume you're privileged. So even before his true breakthrough, the blueprint for later drama was quietly being drawn. Because the higher he rose, the more people would search for a hidden reason. And then, the industry opened a door that doesn't open for everyone. A high-profile youth project with massive visibility. Dream High, 2011, wasn't just another credit. It was a springboard. Suddenly, the audience wasn't watching him in the corner of a story. They were watching him as a force inside it. The camera stopped treating him like supporting atmosphere and started treating him like a lead in waiting. This is the cliffhanger of Part 3. He hasn't exploded yet, but the fuse is lit. The quiet boy who learned to perform is now standing one step away from national recognition. And once that step happens, his life won't belong to him in the same way again. The breakthrough didn't arrive like a slow sunrise. It hit like a switch. One project and suddenly Kim Soo-HYUN wasn't promising. He was unavoidable. After Dream High, the industry had already circled his name, but the public hadn't fully claimed him yet. Then came the kind of role that turns actors into national phenomena, a historical drama where emotion has to be bigger than dialogue, and the camera lives on your face. When Moon Embracing the Sun exploded, it wasn't just ratings. It was cultural domination. Viewers weren't watching a character anymore. They were watching a star being born in real time. His eyes carried the weight of a king, but also the ache of a boy who never got to be ordinary. That contrast, strength wrapped around vulnerability, became his signature. Overnight, his name turned into a guarantee. If he's in it, people will show up. And just when the country thought they understood him, he pivoted. My Love from the Star didn't simply succeed. It went global, exporting his face into a new level of fame where the audience isn't one nation, but the entire internet. He wasn't just a top actor, he became a symbol of K-drama perfection, the kind of celebrity who can make a stare feel like an event. Fashion brands, endorsements, magazine covers, everything accelerated. The camera loved him, and the public rewarded that love with obsession. But here's the twist of an explosion. Your talent becomes the smallest part of your story. Once you reach that height, the world stops asking, "Can he act?" and starts asking, "Who is he, really?" The more flawless the image, the more people look for a crack. Fame doesn't only lift you, it magnifies you. It turns every gesture into evidence, every silence into speculation, every personal detail into currency. Kim Soo-HYUN had arrived at the top of Korean stardom. Now the spotlight wasn't warming him, it was watching him. At the top of the mountain, fame stops feeling like applause. It starts feeling like a courtroom, where the jury refreshes their feed every minute. For Kim Soo-HYUN, the turning point wasn't a bad drama or a box office flop. It was a wave of allegations tied to the late actress Kim Soo-HYUN, amplified by online broadcasts and reposted across platforms until public opinion sounded like a verdict. Suddenly, his career wasn't being discussed through roles or awards. It was being discussed through screenshots, timelines built by strangers, and a single question that wouldn't stop echoing. What really happened behind the camera? Then came the darkest fuel: tragedy. Kim Soo-HYUN, who had faced heavy public scrutiny after a 2022 drunk driving incident, was found dead in February 2025 in what authorities treated as a suspected suicide. The internet did what it always does in moments like this. It tried to turn grief into a story with a villain. Allegations circulated claiming he had dated her while she was underage and implying that her hardship and death were connected to him. The problem with viral narratives is that they don't wait for facts, they race for emotion. Kim Soo-HYUN and his agency responded by denying the underage dating allegation. At a March 31, 2025 press conference, he said their relationship happened later, when she was of legal age, and described the claims as manipulated or false, while also announcing legal action. Reports also described lawsuits seeking damages against those involved in spreading the allegations, framing the conflict as defamation and privacy violations. In the public eye, this wasn't just a denial. It was a high-stakes move. If you speak, you risk feeding the fire. If you stay silent, the fire writes your name into its smoke. The scandal's impact wasn't abstract. It was visible. Brands began distancing themselves, and scheduled appearances became unstable as organizers and sponsors weighed backlash. Articles tracked how quickly top actor turned into risk, how petitions and comment sections tried to decide his future before courts could. Even if a person is ultimately cleared, the damage to reputation can happen in real time, one headline at a time, one contract at a time. And beneath all of it sits the most brutal truth of celebrity culture. The public often demands a perfect image, then punishes the human being for not matching it. Kim Soo-HYUN's entire rise was built on control. Quiet intensity, polished restraint, a clean aura that made him look unshakable. But in a crisis, that same restraint gets reinterpreted as coldness, calculation, guilt. That's the trap of being Korea's golden star. The brighter you shine, the more people search for a reason to prove the light was fake. When you watch Kim Soo-HYUN's career in reverse, the ending feels almost cruel. A shy boy learns acting to stop hiding. He grows into a performer whose power is control, quiet intensity, disciplined choices, a face that can carry a nation's emotions without raising its voice. Then the world rewards him for that restraint, and later uses the same restraint as evidence against him. That's the hidden cost of becoming Korea's golden actor. You don't just play characters. You become a character the public believes it owns. But the real payoff of his story isn't a clean, perfect conclusion. It's the uncomfortable truth that fame doesn't judge people by facts alone. It judges them by what feels satisfying to believe. In a scandal era, a headline can rewrite a decade of work in a week. A rumor can become memory. A silence can become confession. And for celebrities, the punishment often arrives before the proof, because outrage travels faster than verification. So what survives? Not the trending topics, not the comment wars. What survives is the timeline that can't be edited, the years of craft, the roles that defined an era, the discipline that built a career before any controversy ever existed. Kim Soo-HYUN's story leaves one final question hanging for the viewer, not about him, but about us. Do we actually want the truth? Or do we just want an ending that matches the story we already decided to tell?